On the afternoon of July 15, 1982, pedaling towards a narrow bridge, two boys noticed a swimmer clinging to a rotten piling about 45 meters away from the bridge. They think that the swimmer was just tired and had to rest for a while. Why isn't the swimmer standing up? I'm not sure. The water is very shallow. Anyone can stand up in there. The longer they look at it, the stranger things become. Wait, why is that person covered in mud? Oh god, no, this is not a swimmer. We have to call the cops. Wendy Lee Caulfield, a 16-year-old who was found dead in Washington's Green River, would catalyze a 19-year-long investigation of one of the most prolific serial killers, Gary Ridgway, also known as the Green River Killer. The police thought that this was just an isolated case, but within a month, there were 4 more bodies found in that same river, namely Deborah Lee Boner, Marcia Faye Chapman, Opal Charmaine Mills, and Cynthia Jean Hines. You can pause the video and look at the profiles of these victims and try to assess how similar they are in terms of age, traits, and appearance, and how similar their causes of death were, as they will be important later on. These tributaries of crime converge into a wider river of it, a river that holds memories, a river of bodies from the casualties of Ridgeway. Gary Leon Ridgway was born on February 18, 1949 in Salt Lake City, Utah. His father, Thomas Newton Ridgway, is a bus driver, while his mother, Mary Rita Ridgway, was a sales clerk at JCPenney. In his early life, Gary was a small kid with wispy hair and no distinctive features. He had a forgettable face. He was raised in an impoverished town with his 2 brothers, Gregory and Thomas. Academically speaking, Ridgway isn't performing that well in school. He has dyslexia and was held back a year or 2 in high school. He himself saw this limitation and was very much afraid of being put in the lack of term short bus. A short bus is a smaller school bus that transports students who are in need of special education. This agony of his toward his intellect might have started or been exacerbated by the way his parents treat his older brother, Gregory. Gregory was outstanding in his academic life. He is the popular brother, a family favorite, the better son. Gary, on the other hand, was constantly being humiliated by his parents. He had an abusive father. His domineering mother would constantly humiliate him, even in public. He was a bedwetter until the age of 13, which her mother would always scold him for, but would immediately clean him up. His dynamics with his mom eventually led to him confusing the feelings of anger, resentment, and sexual attraction. The teenage years of Gary were more treacherous and troubled. At the age of 16, he would commit his first crime as he lured a boy into the woods and stabbed his liver with a knife. Luckily, the boy survived, but he remembers Ridgway walking away, laughing, and saying,
I I always wonder what it'd be like to kill someone.
Ridgway was never caught, nor has there been a recorded punishment under his name. It was reported, but ignored. This boy is Ridgway's first almost victim. As we traverse his adult life, we can see how his experiences bleed through his adulthood, shaping him to become the Green River Killer. Beginning in 1969, he graduated from high school at the age of 20. At 21, he served 2 years in the US Navy, where he was deployed to Vietnam, and during these times, he would have unprotected sex with some prostitutes, which led to his diagnosis with gonorrhea. After his return from Vietnam, he would be working as a truck painter at the Kenworth Motor Truck Company. He held this job for 30 years. In 1970, he married his high school sweetheart, Claudia Craig, who was 19 years old at that time, and they would only have one child. This is his first wife. In 1971, he received a standard honorable discharge at the end of his service. In 1972, he divorced Claudia and then remarried to Marcia Lorraine Winslow, his second wife. 2 years later, 1975, he and Marcia would give birth to their son, Matthew. As years went by, Marcia would later sense the torrent of Gary's psychopathy. He would have days of piousness, reading the Bible aloud, crying at the sermons, and preaching to their neighbors about the teachings of the Bible. But sometimes, it was Gary himself who would oppose to those teachings. He has a lot of episodes of bad temper, violence, and abuse of his partner. He has intense cravings for lust that he would often demand of his wife, even out in the public. He has this obsessive love and hate relationship with sex workers. He wants them out of the neighborhood, yet he wants them. He patronizes them. 5 years after their son was born in 1980, Marcia had had enough and filed a complaint against Ridgeway, claiming that he was harassing her about the divorce papers. Marcia decided to divorce Ridgway because of his growing obsession with local sex workers and his prying mother, who controls the couple's finances. Because of this, things got way more heated between Ridgway and Marcia, and they would often get into physical fights with each other. This is also the start of Ridgway seeing more prostitutes and other women to satiate his obsessions. In 1981, Ridgway met someone at the Parents Without Partners meeting, which is a non-profit organization that holds social gatherings for single parents. This woman that he met will eventually be his girlfriend, with whom he will have intercourse for a while. On the 21st of May, Ridgway was officially divorced from Marcia. Little did anyone know, at the end of his marriage would be the start of his new Ridgway, a path of blood. Obsession, sex, and hatred circled the train, fueling Ridgway's desire. But for what? To love or to kill? Is it deed for devotion or death by demotion? Tracking a serial killer is no easy task, but the crime scene will give us a good shot at finding the killer. Although crime scenes may not have physical traces, the manifestations of offenders' behavior can still be unearthed. Since vicious crimes come from vicious intents, human behavior is one of the keys that could solve them. With the countless victims of Ridgeway, let's focus on the 5 victims for now. These are the first 5 victims of Ridgeway, all found in the Wamish River Tributary, commonly known as the Green River. They are all females. Most of them are similar in age, albeit Marcia is 31 years old. Most of them are currently single at the moment, aside from Deborah. Most of them had an impoverished or unstable upbringing. They are all sex workers. And lastly, they are all killed by ligature strangulation. All of these are part of one of 3 manifestations that can be unearthed on Ridgeway's crime scenes. And these are all part of modus operandi, or MO. Modus operandi is a Latin phrase that means mode of operating. This is the evasive manifestation at the crime scene. MO is the method of a criminal's operation that helps them commit a crime successfully. It is that behavior that helps them persuade a victim and kill them without being caught. It is a habit. It is dynamic. It is a go-to move. And just like everyday habits, they are malleable. MOs may start simple, but through experiences, newly found knowledge, and eventual confidence, MOs may become complex. It changes if the new tactic is convenient for the killer, or if the old tactics will make them caught. Let's look at the few MOs of Ridgeway. His method of killing is a constant thing for Ridgeway, but why is that? He chose asphyxiation by ligature strangulation because it is cleaner. Ridgeway doesn't want to deal with guns and knives, as he thinks that it would be messy and hard to clean. He also mainly targeted sex workers because they were easy to pick up without being noticed. They were easier to persuade, and he thought that they wouldn't be missed. Furthermore, in his time, sex workers were already frowned upon and discriminated against. Thus, investigations for these women will become slower. But you might be thinking, how does he persuade his victims to accompany him? Remember the fact that he has been a truck painter for 30 years? Using that truck, he would roam around Seattle and Tacoma with a picture of his son in his pocket. He would later use the photo to get these victims to trust him, driving away with the victim, and then Ridgeway would do the killing, mostly at his house. This MO continuously evolved, and he became more careful. All of that is Ridgeway's routine for killing. Ridgway sometimes uses the tactic of flashing his money to the sex workers as he drives by, and would park in the parking lot and wait for the sex workers to approach. This is a much safer approach since there would be fewer witnesses. And if there is, he would halt the killing and rather date the potential victim first, doubling down on his good man attitude. He would also use his car instead of his truck. He would sometimes dump the bodies in cluster, just like the case for Chapman, Hines, and Mills. He would also do the killing inside of the vehicle or in the woods, and then dump them on the Green River, and later on the other places as well, such as Star Lake, Highway 18, Highway 410, SeaTac Airport and T Golf Course, and even in the state of Oregon. Changing the dumping sites of the body is convenient for the killer, but not for the police. It throws them off. It baffles them. It is like a puzzle piece from a different puzzle. This piece might seem out of place, but look closely, and you'll see that it has been altered, changed, staged. Staging is a deceptive manifestation that means to alter the crime scene before the police arrive. It is purposeful and cognizant. This is one of the reasons why investigators must not accept evidence at face value, because, like its offender, a crime scene has many layers. Before we continue, think about who does the staging act. Why they do it? Is it only the offender who does this? Does anyone other than the offender can stage a crime scene? Staging is deceptive to those who analyze the crime scene, but is it always the intention to deceive the investigator? Reasons for staging and person who does it vary. Right now, there are two main types of staging: primary and secondary staging. Primary staging is misleading the investigation, redirecting the focus away from the offender itself. This is the intentional deception. For this type, it is the offender who does it. Secondary staging is a type of staging that is an alteration, but it is not to deceive, but for other reasons. For this type, offenders may still be the one who does the secondary staging if their reason is not to deceive, but for something else. Maybe it is an accident, or maybe they want something from the victim. For this type, it is usually the family members, relatives, or friends who do it. This usually happens in rape, murder cases where victims were stripped of dignity, and the thing that they could only do to restore it was to cover their bodies. In the case of Ridgeway, he developed several schemes to divert the investigation away from him. What he did was primary staging. He would change the location of his dumping sites from Green River to several places away from it, so that it would confuse the police, making it harder to incarcerate him. He would also contaminate the bodies of his victims by leaving misleading evidences that he had taken from other people, such as cigarette butts, motel pamphlets, chewing gums, and written notes. He also once sent a poorly written 2-page letter to the Seattle Post-Intelligencer in February 1984, filled with deceptive information that the FBI falsely concluded that didn't come from the killer himself, when in fact it did come from Ridgeway, trying to steer the investigation away from him. Experience is key for MOs and staging. These are the practical and deceptive manifestations after all. While MOs and staging give us the how, it does not give us the why. And that is what the third manifestation seeks to answer: the psychological manifestation, the offender's signature. Signature is a calling card of the offender, the thing that may always lead back to them. Signature is an enduring, never-changing aspect of the offender. It may evolve, but it will remain constant. Think of signature as a recurring theme of the offender, the thing that is stable and recognizable in any crimes they commit. although it is not a guarantee to find one on your victim, and not every killer has one. It is an act that is beyond what is needed for the crime, an act that satiates the doer, not the deed. This calling card is the killer's literal signature because it comes internally. It is psychological, and it is a compulsion driven by the love and hatred that have accumulated. It is their own, fueling their own desire, an obsession to love and kill. It is a deed of death. This is the part where lines become thin, because the signature may contain elements from the previous manifestations. Looking back at Ridgway's crimes, we can see that the elements from his background, MO, and staging do point directly towards his signature. His obsessive love and hate relationship with sex workers, his method of killing, the location where he dumps his victims, all of it flows directly to his signature. His signature is necrophilia. He would like to kill his victims by strangulation, not only because he wants the crime to be clean, but also he would engage in sexual intercourse after the fact. When staging his own crimes, he would not just dump the body and forget about it. He remembers every site, every location, because he has that urge to have sex with those victims again, despite them being dead several days or weeks later. They would also consider the concealment of the victims part of Ridgway's signature as well. In addition to all of that, another signature of Ridgway is the insertion of foreign objects into his victims. You are probably thinking, most of this sounds like a ritual. And you are right. Aside from those three manifestations, there is a fourth one, the ritual. Ritual and signature are often used interchangeably, and there is little to no formal explanation and clear separation between the two. Some would argue that they are the same, and that the ritual is part of the signature. It is one of the components that make it the signature of the killer. Some would argue that the ritual is a repetitive fantasy-driven act, while signature is an act that comprises a mix of behaviors that can be seen in more than two crimes. Some would argue that the ritual and MO are similar in ways, but different in what they are trying to achieve. The MO is for the outcome, as ritual is for the emotions. To give a clear answer and distinction, this is what the linkage analysis of Hazelwood and Warren said. MO is the evasive manifestation. It is centered around methods and the end goal of the offender. Staging is the deceptive manifestation. It is centered around how misleading the crime scene is. Signature and ritual are the psychological manifestations. And to further break them apart, ritual is the symbolic manifestation, the expressive behaviors that go beyond what the crime requires. Signature is the manifestation pattern, their fingerprint, a distinctive expression of the offender's inner fantasies, shown through ritual and any MO behaviors that carry psychological meaning. All of these manifestations are essential in trying to know the behavior of the offender. They are an integral part of the crime scene, which provides us with evidence that would help the victim get the justice they deserve. Beyond all of these evidence, frameworks, and systems are the lives of the victims. Let's take a moment and remember all of the known victims of the Green River Killer. This is the record of lives Gary Ridgway stole. Ridgway might be low in IQ, but he is a sly fox. Even though police are on his tail early on, he managed to slip out of their grasp and commit more crimes. He even sat for interviews and passed polygraphs, which then led them to think that Ridgway was a sociopath that could hack a lie detector. The Green River Task Force even sought help from one of the most infamous serial killers, Ted Bundy, and asked for his insights on Ridgway's psychology. Ted Bundy's assumption about the Green River Killer was later revealed to be accurate. This is a true sign of how Ridgway honed his skills at hiding his tracks. But with the technology catching up to him, Ridgway was caught in 2001. With the help of DNA evidence, Ridgway was arrested for the murder of his first few victims. After nearly 2 decades of waiting, they found a match on the DNA sample found in his victims and the DNA sample of Ridgway's hair and saliva. He later made a plea deal on the condition that the death sentence would be taken away. He confessed to having committed 71 murders, 48 of which he was formally charged. 42 out of 48 victims were on Green River list that the police have, and 6 of them weren't. On December 18, 2003, Ridgway was officially sentenced to life imprisonment without parole at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington. This is where Gary Ridgway's Tributary ends, drifting amongst those who are convicted with their lives carried away by the downstream of their very own river of crime.